The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was filled with representatives from over 200 alien species. They sat in floating chairs arranged in a massive circle, their strange bodies glowing under the blue lights of the ancient chamber. Some had scales, others had feathers, and a few were made of pure energy. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They believed they knew everything worth knowing. In the center of this grand assembly stood a single human woman. Ambassador Linda Morrison wore the simple gray uniform of the Terran Confederation. She was 53 years old, with silver streaks in her brown hair and lines around her eyes that came from decades of diplomatic service. She held a small data tablet in her hands, and her expression was calm but serious. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, she began, her voice clear and steady. I come before you today with an announcement that will not please many of you. After 300 years of membership, humanity has decided to withdraw from this body. We are leaving the Council, effective immediately. The reaction was exactly what she expected. Laughter, mockery, dismissive waves from appendages of every shape and size. Hi, Counselor. Vexton of the Korathi Dominion was the first to speak. He was a tall creature, with 4 arms and 4 amber eyes, set in a face that looked like it was carved from dark stone. His people had been one of the founding members of the Council, and they had never hidden their contempt for the young human species. Leaving, he said, his voice dripping with amusement. And where exactly do you think you will go, Ambassador? Back to your single solar system? Back to that wet little planet you call home? Linda did not react to the insult. She had heard worse over the years. Much worse. Yes, Counselor, she replied. We are returning to Earth. All of us. Every human colony, every research station, every military outpost. We are pulling back to the Sol system and closing our borders. This caused more laughter. The Thalian representative, a being made of living crystal that chimed when it spoke, made a sound that passed for amusement among its kind. You isolate yourselves? How dramatic. Tell me, Ambassador, do you think anyone will notice? Do you think anyone will care? Perhaps not, Linda said. She gathered her tablets and prepared to leave, but I suspect you will care more than you realize. In time, is that a threat? Vexton demanded.
Oh, Counselor.
It is simply an observation. Humanity has been part of this galaxy for 3 centuries. We have done much during that time, more than most of you ever bothered to notice. When we are gone, you may find that certain things no longer work as well as they once did. She turned and walked toward the exit. Behind her, the assembly erupted in dismissive chatter. The humans had always been considered the weakest members of the Council. Their technology was primitive compared to the elder races. Their military was small and poorly equipped. They had been tolerated barely because they occupied a useful position between Council space and the dangerous Varix raiders. Now they were leaving, and no one seemed to care. High above the Council homeworld, the last human ships were preparing to depart. Captain Daniel Webb stood on the bridge of the transport vessel Starlight Voyager, watching the planet shrink on his view screen. He was a tall man with broad shoulders and tired eyes. He had served in space for 30 years, and he had seen things that most Council species could not imagine. All personnel are aboard. Captain, reported his first officer. Lieutenant Karen Price. She was younger than him, with short red hair and a sharp mind. The civilian transports jumped 5 minutes ago. We are the last human ship in this sector. Daniel nodded slowly. How long do you think it will take them to understand what they have lost? Karen considered the question. A month, maybe 2. It depends on how quickly the Virax realize we are gone.
That fast?
The Virax have been waiting for an opportunity like this for a long time. They fear us, Captain. They always have. Once they learn we have withdrawn, they will move quickly. Daniel sighed. He did not enjoy what was about to happen. He had friends among the other species. Good people who had never shared their government's prejudice against humanity. They would suffer for mistakes they did not make, but the decision had been made at the highest levels. Humanity had given the galaxy 300 years of service, 300 years of quiet help and steady support, and in return they had received nothing but contempt and mockery. It was time to leave and let the galaxy see what life was like without them. Set course for Sol, Daniel ordered. Maximum speed. The Starlight Voyager's engines hummed with power as the navigation computer calculated the jump coordinates. In a few moments, they would be gone, and the long journey home would begin. Karen looked at the view screen one last time. Do you think we will ever come back? I do not know, Daniel admitted. That will depend on them. On whether they can learn to see us as equals instead of servants. And if they cannot learn? Daniel did not answer. The ship shuddered slightly as the faster-than-light drive engaged, and the stars stretched into long lines of light. Then they were gone, leaving behind an empty patch of space where the last human vessel had been, back on the Council homeworld. The assembly had already moved on to other business. The human withdrawal was mentioned briefly in the official records, noted as a minor administrative matter. No one called for an investigation into why humanity had left. No one suggested sending a diplomatic mission to repair the relationship in the great archive of the Council. A young Karathi clerk named Thelvin read the report with troubled eyes. Unlike most of his people, he had studied human culture. He had learned their language, read their history, and even made friends with a few human traders who passed through his sector. He knew something that the Council did not seem to understand. Humans were different from other species. They did not build empires or conquer worlds. Instead, they helped. They fixed things. They filled gaps that no one else noticed. They did these things quietly, without asking for credit or reward, and now they were gone. Thalvin closed the report, stared out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there, millions of humans were making their way home. And somewhere in the darkness, the Virax were watching and waiting. He had a terrible feeling that the galaxy was about to learn. A very painful lesson about the true value of humanity. And by the time that lesson was complete, it might be too late to do anything about it. The young clerk began to make plans. If no one else would act, then he would have to do something himself. Even if it took years. Even if it seemed impossible, someone had to bring the humans back before everything fell apart. 6 weeks passed after the humans departed, and at first, nothing seemed different. The Council continued its meetings. Trade ships moved between the stars. Politicians gave speeches about how the galaxy was stronger without the primitive human species dragging everyone down. Then the problems began. It started with the shipping lanes. The Meridian Trade Corridor was the most important route in the outer territories. Thousands of cargo vessels traveled through it every day, carrying food, medicine, and manufactured goods to hundreds of worlds. For over 2 centuries, it had been completely safe. Merchants could travel without guards, without weapons, without fear. In a single week, Galacxe raiders destroyed 3 cargo convoys. 47 ships. Over 12,000 crew members? Gone. High Counselor Vexton summoned his military commanders to explain how this could have happened. Where were our patrol ships? He demanded, his 4 amber eyes burning with anger. Where was our fleet? Admiral Koravath was a decorated officer with 50 years of service. He had fought in 3 wars and won every battle. But now he stood before the High Counselor looking like a student who had failed an important exam. There were gaps in our patrol coverage, he admitted. Significant gaps. We are investigating how this happened. Gaps. Our security network has been perfect for generations. How can there suddenly be gaps? Koravath took a deep breath. It appears, Counselor, that the humans were filling those gaps. Unofficially. Their merchant ships, their research vessels, even their colony transports. They were always present in the shipping lanes. Always watching. Always reporting suspicious activity. You are telling me that we depended on humans for security? It seems so, Counselor. The Virax knew this. They avoided any route where human ships traveled regularly. They feared the humans more than they feared our military fleet. Now that the humans are gone, the Virax have realized there is nothing stopping them. Vexton sat in stunned silence. For 300 years, he had believed that humans were weak and useless. Now he was learning that his entire civilization had been relying on them without even knowing it. The news got worse. On the agricultural world of Thesan Prime, The great protein synthesizers were failing. These massive machines produced food for billions of beings across 12 star systems. They had operated perfectly for over a century, requiring only occasional maintenance that the local engineers could easily handle. Or so everyone believed. Chief Engineer Malvex stared at the diagnostic readouts with growing horror. System after system was showing errors. Components that should have lasted another 50 years were breaking down. Power regulators were failing. Filtration units were clogged with unknown substances. "Get me the maintenance records," he ordered his assistant. All of them. Going back as far as possible, the assistant returned with a data tablet containing decades of reports. Malvex read through them with increasing despair. For 80 years, human engineers had been rotating through Thesan Prime. They came as volunteers, asking for nothing except food and shelter during their stay. They would spend weeks examining the synthesizers, placing parts, upgrading software, fixing small problems before they became large ones. Everyone had assumed this was just human curiosity, a primitive species trying to understand superior technology. No one had realized that the humans were actually keeping the machines running. "How long do we have?" Malvex asked quietly. His assistant checked the projections. At current rates of degradation, perhaps 4 months before cascade failure. For months. Yes, Chief Engineer. After that, the synthesizers will shut down completely. We do not have the knowledge to repair them. We do not even understand what the humans did to keep them functioning. Malvex felt sick. For months to prevent famine across 12 star systems. And the only people who could help were on the other side of the galaxy. Behind borders they had sealed shut. Similar problems were appearing everywhere. The communications network began to fragment. Relay stations that had worked perfectly for centuries started developing errors. Messages were delayed or lost entirely. Emergency channels became unreliable. Investigation revealed that human technicians had been maintaining these stations for generations. They had done the work for free, traveling from system to system in their small ships. Asking nothing in return except the chance to help, medical supplies became scarce. Human pharmaceutical companies had been providing free medicines to poor colonies for over 200 years. They had set up clinics, trained local doctors, and distributed vaccines that prevented dozens of deadly diseases. Now, the ships no longer came, and stockpiles were running low. Even the translation matrix that allowed the Council's hundreds of species to communicate was failing. The software had been developed long ago, but it required constant updates to handle new languages and dialects. Human programmers had been providing these updates quietly, fixing bugs and adding features without ever asking for recognition. Without them, the matrix began to break down. Diplomatic meetings became confused. Trade negotiations failed because parties could not understand each other. Old conflicts that had been resolved through careful communication threatened to return. The Council called an emergency session. "We face a crisis," announced the Thelian representative, his crystalline body pulsing with stress. "The Virex have taken 17 systems. Our supply chains are collapsing. Our infrastructure is failing. We do not have enough ships, enough engineers, enough doctors to handle all of these problems at once." "The humans did all of this," someone muttered from the back of the chamber. "They held everything together, and we never even noticed."
Ow.
Vexton rose from his seat. His face was gray, and he looked older than he had 6 weeks ago. "The humans are gone," he said. "We cannot change the past. We must find solutions on our own." But as he spoke, he knew the truth. There were no solutions. The galaxy had spent 300 years taking humanity for granted, using their kindness and generosity without ever saying thank you. Now the bill had come due, and no one could pay it. In his small office on a distant world, Falvin made his final preparations. He had sold everything he owned to buy a small ship. He had learned everything he could about human space and the routes that led to their home system. He was going to Earth. Everyone told him it was impossible. The humans had closed their borders. No one passed the soul barrier. Ships that tried were turned away or destroyed. But Thalvin had to try. Someone had to beg the humans to return before it was too late. Someone had to apologize for 3 centuries of disrespect and cruelty. If the humans refused to help, then the galaxy deserved whatever happened next. He climbed aboard his ship, activated the engines, and set course for the most distant corner of known space. The journey would take months. He might die before he arrived, but he had to try. It was the only hope the galaxy had left. The journey to human space took Thalvin 3 months. He traveled through sectors that had once been safe, but were now filled with danger. Pirates attacked shipping lanes that used to be protected. Colonies that had relied on human aid were falling into chaos. Everywhere he went, he saw the same story repeated again and again. The galaxy was dying without humanity, and most people still did not understand why. Thalvin kept a journal during his travels. He recorded everything he saw, every conversation he had, every piece of evidence that showed how important the humans had been. He wanted to bring this information to Earth, to show them that their departure had consequences they might not have expected, or perhaps they had expected it. Perhaps that was the point. When he finally reached the edge of human space, he found something that made his heart stop. A barrier of defense platforms stretched across the darkness. Thousands of them, each one bristling with weapons more advanced than anything the Council possessed. Behind them, patrol ships moved in perfect formation, watching for any sign of intrusion. The Soul Barrier. Everyone had heard of it, but few had ever seen it. The humans had built it in secret over the past century. Preparing for the day when they would close their borders and leave the galaxy behind, Thalvin broadcast. A message on all frequencies. This is Thalvin of the Korthi people. I come in peace. I wish to speak with your leaders. Please, I beg you to hear what I have to say. For a long moment, there was no response. Thalvin wondered if they would simply destroy his ship without warning. He was an alien, after all. One of the species that had treated humanity so badly for so long. Then a voice came over the communication channel. It was calm and professional, with no hint of hostility. Unknown vessel, this is the patrol ship Constellation, Commander Lisa Green speaking. You have entered restricted space. State your purpose, or turn back immediately. Thalvin pressed his transmission button with trembling fingers. Commander Green, I have traveled for 3 months to reach you. The galaxy is falling apart without humanity. The Galacxe are conquering system after system. Our food supplies are failing. Our communications are breaking down. Millions will die if nothing changes. There was a pause. Thalvin imagined the humans discussing his message, deciding whether to trust him or send him away. Why should we care? Commander Green finally asked. Your people made it very clear that you did not want us. You laughed when our ambassador announced our departure. You celebrated when our ships left your space. I know, Thalvin said. I know what my people did. I know what all of us did. We were wrong. We were arrogant and blind and foolish. But there are innocent people dying, Commander. Children who never had a chance to learn prejudice. Families who only want to live in peace. They do not deserve to suffer because their leaders were stupid. Another long pause. Follow us, Commander Green said at last. Stay exactly on our course. Do not deviate. Someone will want to hear what you have to say. Thalvin nearly collapsed with relief. He had made it. He had passed the soul barrier. Now everything depended on what he said when he reached Earth. The journey through human space took another week. Thalvin was amazed by what he saw. He had always been told that humans were primitive, that their technology was centuries behind the great powers of the galaxy. But the truth was completely different. The Sol system was a fortress unlike anything he had ever imagined. Thousands of warships patrolled the space between planets. Defense platforms surrounded every moon and asteroid. Shipyards produced vessels at an incredible rate. Military academies trained officers in tactics that the Council had never seen. The humans had been hiding their true strength. For 300 years they had pretended to be weak, while quietly building the most powerful civilization in known space. Why? Why would they do this? Thalvin thought he understood. The humans had learned that power brings enemies. If they had shown their true capabilities, the other species would have feared them, perhaps attacked them before they could grow stronger. By pretending to be harmless, they had survived long enough to become unstoppable, and during all those years of pretending, they had used their hidden resources to help everyone else. They had filled the gaps, fixed the problems, prevented the disasters. Not because they were weak, but because they were strong enough to be kind. Earth was beautiful. Falvin had never seen a world like it. Blue oceans covered most of the surface. Green forests and golden plains stretched across the continents. Cities gleamed with lights that did not hurt his eyes like the harsh illumination of Karathi buildings. He was brought to a building in a city called Geneva, where the Terran High Council held its meetings. 12 elected leaders sat in a semicircle, representing Earth and all its colonies. They wore simple clothes without decoration or symbols of rank. They looked at Falvin with expressions that were curious but not hostile. President Nathan Cole was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. He gestured for Falvin to speak. "Tell us why you have come," he said. Falvin told them everything. He described the collapse, supply chains, the failing infrastructure, the Virax conquests. He showed them his journal, the records of suffering he had witnessed during his journey. He spoke about the innocent people who would die if help did not arrive. Then he did something that no Karathi had ever done before. He lowered himself to the floor and pressed his forehead against the ground. "We were wrong," he said. "My people, all the peoples of the council, we were wrong about humanity. We used you without gratitude. We mocked you without understanding. We pushed you away when we should have embraced you as friends." He raised his head and looked at the humans with all 4 of his amber eyes. "I cannot undo what was done. I can only beg you to forgive us. Not because we deserve it. We do not. But because there are children dying in the darkness, and you are the only ones who can save them." The chamber was silent. The 12 leaders looked at each other. Some seemed moved by his words. Others appeared skeptical. Secretary of Defense Andrew Blake leaned forward. "You ask us to save the same civilizations that treated us as inferior for 3 centuries. Why should we?" Falvin had no good answer. He could only tell the truth, "Because that is who you are," he said. "You help. You always have. Not because you are weak, but because you are strong enough to be kind. That is what makes humanity special. That is what the galaxy needs. Please, please do not let that light go out." President Cole raised his hand for silence. "We need to discuss this," he said. "Please wait outside. We will give you our answer." Falvin was led to a small room where he waited for hours. He did not know what the humans would decide. He only knew that he had done everything he could. The fate of the galaxy now rested in their hands. Inside the council chamber, the debate lasted for many hours. The 12 leaders of humanity argued about what to do. Some spoke with anger. Others spoke with compassion. All of them understood that this decision would shape the future of their species and the entire galaxy. Secretary of Defense Andrew Blake was the first to speak after Falvin left the room. "We should refuse," he said. "For 300 years, we gave everything to those people. We shared our technology, our medicine, our engineers. We protected their shipping lanes and maintained their infrastructure. And what did we receive in return? Mockery, contempt. They treated us like servants, like lesser beings who existed only to clean up their messes." Several council members nodded in agreement. "The galaxy deserves what is happening to it," Andrew continued. "They pushed us away. They celebrated when we left. Now they are facing the consequences of their arrogance. Why should we save them from their own stupidity?" President Nathan Cole listened without interrupting. He had learned long ago that good leaders hear all opinions before making decisions. Councilmember Patricia Shaw raised her hand. She was the oldest member of the council, a woman who had spent her entire life working in humanitarian aid. "I understand the anger," she said. "I share it. I was there when Ambassador Morrison reported to us about the council's reaction to our withdrawal. I remember how it felt to hear that they laughed at us, that they were happy to see us go." She paused and looked around the room. but I also remember why we helped them in the first place. It was not for gratitude. It was not for respect. We helped because that is what humans do. We see suffering, and we try to end it. We see problems, and we try to solve them. That impulse is the best part of who we are. And look where it got us, Andrew replied. Used and discarded like tools, that is their failing, not ours, Patricia said. If we refuse to help now, if we let millions die because we are angry about how we were treated, then we become something less than we were. We become petty and cruel. We become like them. The debate continued. Arguments flew back and forth across the table. Some council members supported helping the Galacxe. Others wanted to let it burn. A few suggested a middle path, offering limited assistance while demanding guarantees of better treatment in the future. Then a new voice entered the discussion. Linda Morrison stood at the entrance to the chamber. She had been retired from diplomatic service for 2 years, but her reputation still carried enormous weight. She had spent more time among the alien species than almost any other human alive. She understood them better than anyone. "May I speak?" she asked. President Cole gestured for her to approach. "Of course, Ambassador. We would value your perspective." Linda walked slowly to the center of the room. She was older now, her hair completely silver, but her eyes were still sharp and clear. "I was there when the council dismissed us," she said. "I heard their laughter. I saw the contempt on their faces. For many years afterward, I felt exactly what Secretary Blake feels now: anger, bitterness, a desire to see them suffer for what they did." She paused and took a deep breath. "But time has given me perspective. I have had years to think about what happened and why. And I have come to understand something important." She looked at each council member in turn. The aliens who mocked us were not evil. They were ignorant. They had lived for so long at the top of the Galacxe that they forgot what it was like to need help. They could not imagine that a younger species might have something valuable to offer. Their arrogance blinded them to our contributions. "That does not excuse what they did," Andrew said. "No, it does not," Linda agreed. "But it explains it. An explanation opens the door to forgiveness." She turned to face President Cole directly. "We did not leave the Galacxe because we hated them. We left because they needed to understand what they had. They needed to experience life without us, so they could appreciate what we had given them. Now they understand. The alien who knelt before us today, he understands. Others will learn the same lesson in the months and years to come." "So you believe we should help them?" the president asked. "I believe we should do what humans have always done. We should offer our hand to those who are suffering, regardless of whether they deserve it. Not because we are weak or foolish or naive, but because we are strong enough to forgive, strong enough to be better than our anger." The room fell silent. Finally, President Cole spoke. "Let us vote. All in favor of returning to the Galacxe and providing assistance, raise your hand." One by one, the hands went up. Andrew Blake hesitated, his face showing the struggle between his anger and his better nature. Then he too raised his hand. The vote was unanimous. Humanity would return. President Cole nodded slowly. "Then it is decided. Secretary Blake, begin mobilizing the fleet. We will need everything we have. Ships, engineers, doctors, supplies, everything." Andrew stood and saluted. "Yes, Mr. President, I will have preliminary plans ready within the hour." "And someone bring the alien back in," Cole added. "He deserves to hear our answer." When Thalvin returned to the chamber, he could see immediately that something had changed. The humans were no longer sitting in judgment. They were preparing for action. President Cole rose from his seat and walked toward the alien. "We have made our decision," he said. "Humanity will return to the Galacxe. We will fight the Varax. We will repair the infrastructure. We will provide food and medicine to those in need." Thalvin felt tears forming in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." "Do not thank us yet," Cole said. "There will be conditions. We will not return to the old relationship. We will not be servants or buffers or unappreciated helpers. We will be partners. Equals, the Galacxe must learn to treat all species with respect, including humanity." I will carry your message, Thalvin promised. I will make sure everyone understands. Good. Cole extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Then let us begin. We have a galaxy to save. Thalvin took the offered hand and shook it firmly. Across the Sol system, the great war machine of humanity began to wake. Ships that had been waiting in reserve activated their engines. Soldiers who had trained for decades received orders to deploy. Factories that had been building in secret increased their production. The humans were coming back, and this time, the galaxy would learn exactly what they were capable of. The Galactic Council had never seen anything. Like the fleet that emerged from hyperspace above the seas, Verax's front lines, 12,000 warships, appeared in perfect formation, their silver and blue hulls gleaming against the darkness of space. Each vessel was larger and more powerful than anything the Council had ever built. Weapons that the aliens could not even identify lined every surface. Shields shimmered with energy that made sensors go blind. At the center of this armada flew the flagship Eternal Dawn, a vessel 3 kilometers long that housed the command staff for the entire operation. On its bridge stood Admiral Christopher Lane, a man who had spent 40 years preparing for exactly this moment. Admiral Lane was not a young man. His hair was gray and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. Open a channel to all ships in this sector, he ordered. All ships, Council and Vorax alike. His communications officer complied. And suddenly the Admiral's voice was being broadcast to every vessel within light years. This is Admiral Christopher Lane of the Terran Navy. To Verax forces, you will stand down immediately and surrender, or you will be destroyed. There will be no negotiations. There will be no second chances. You have 1 hour to comply, the Verax responded with mockery. Their war leader, a massive creature covered in spines and armored plates, appeared on the view screen. Humans, he snarled. You abandon this galaxy. You have no authority here. Leave now, or we will destroy you along with these pathetic Council species. Admiral Lane smiled. It was not a friendly smile. You misunderstand the situation, he said. We did not come to negotiate. We came to end this war. 1 hour. The Verax war leader laughed and cut the transmission 50-8 minutes later. The Verax attack began. It lasted less than 2 minutes. The human ships moved with coordination that seemed almost supernatural. Each vessel knew exactly where to be and when to fire. Their weapons cut through Verax's shields like they were made of paper. Their fighters swarmed enemy ships and disabled them before the aliens could react. When the battle ended, the Verax fleet had been completely destroyed. Not a single human ship was seriously damaged. The war leader's vessel was captured intact. Admiral Lane had it brought alongside the Eternal Dawn so he could address the alien commander personally. You have 2 choices, the Admiral told him. Surrender your entire species and accept peace terms, or watch as we do to your homeworld what we just did to your fleet. The Verax surrendered within the hour. News of the battle spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. The humans had returned. They had destroyed the Verax war fleet in minutes. They possessed technology and military power beyond anything anyone had imagined, and they were not finished. Engineering ships spread out across Council space, carrying technicians and supplies to worlds in crisis. On Thesan Prime, human engineers worked around the clock to repair the protein synthesizers. Within a week, the machines were operating better than they had in decades. Medical vessels arrived at colonies that had been suffering without supplies. Doctors treated the sick, distributed vaccines, and trained local staff to handle future emergencies. Millions of lives were saved. Communication specialists rebuilt the relay network. Within a month, the translation matrix was functioning perfectly again. Diplomats could speak to each other without confusion. Trade negotiations resumed. Everywhere the humans went, they fixed what was broken and improved what was working. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand gratitude. They simply helped, just as they had always done. But something was different this time. The aliens were watching. They were learning. They were beginning to understand what they had lost during those terrible months when humanity was gone. High Counselor. Geston requested a meeting with President Cole to sign a new treaty. When they met, the Karathi leader looked very different from the arrogant figure who had mocked Ambassador Morrison years before. He looked tired and humble and old. "I owe you an apology," Vexton said. "I owe your entire species an apology. We treated you shamefully. We used your kindness without appreciation. We mocked your strength because we were too blind to see it." President Cole nodded. "We accept your apology. But apologies alone are not enough. The galaxy must change. Every species must be treated with respect, regardless of how old or powerful they are. There must be true equality among the Council's members." "I agree," Vexton said. "The other counselors agree as well. We have seen what the galaxy looks like without humanity. None of us wish to experience that again." The new treaty was signed in the same chamber where Linda Morrison had announced humanity's withdrawal. This time, there was no laughter. There was only respect and gratitude and hope for a better future. Thalvin was there as an honored guest. He had become a symbol of hope for many species, the alien who had traveled across the galaxy to bring the humans back. When President Cole saw him, he smiled and walked over to shake his hand. "You saved us all," the president said. "No," Thalvin replied. "You saved us. I only asked you to do what you were already capable of doing. Being kind, being strong, being human." In the years that followed, the galaxy transformed. The old hierarchies, based on age and power, faded away. New alliances formed based on mutual respect and shared purpose. Humanity took its place not as servants or buffers, but as leaders and partners. The Verax, defeated and humbled, eventually joined the Council as peaceful members. Without their raiding fleets, they discovered they could build a better life through cooperation than through conquest. Other species that had once looked down on humanity began sending their children to Earth to study. They wanted to learn the secrets of human success. Not the technology or the military tactics, but something deeper. Something about the human spirit that allowed them to be strong and kind at the same time. On Earth, a new monument was built in Geneva. It showed a human hand reaching down to help an alien standing up. The inscription read, "Strength is not the power to destroy. Strength is the courage to help." Ambassador Linda Morrison attended the dedication ceremony. She was very old now, but her eyes were still bright with intelligence and hope. A reporter asked her what she thought about humanity's return to the galaxy. "We never really left," she said with a smile. "We just waited for them to realize they needed us. And when they did, we were ready to come back. That is what humans do. We help. We heal. We build. No matter how badly we are treated, we never stop believing that the universe can be better than it is." And if they had not asked for help, the reporter asked Linda thought for a moment, they would have asked eventually. Everyone does. Because that is the truth about kindness. It is the strongest force in the universe. It outlasts hatred. It overcomes fear. It builds bridges across the darkest voids. She looked up at the stars that filled the night sky. Humanity understood that from the beginning. Now the rest of the galaxy understands it too. And together, we will build something wonderful. The monument glowed softly in the darkness, a symbol of hope for all species. The humans had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same.